Hola everyone, Melody Llama here, ready for another scrumptious topic, and today I thought it'd be neat if we talked about a battle that I haven't seen any videos on YouTube, and that is Team Hebi versus Team Guy. So Team Guy versus Team Hebi is a battle that I personally think is very interesting, considering how different the two teams are, and I don't think it's as simple as many people think. So of course in one corner, which is Hebi, you have Sasuke, Jugo, Suigetsu, and Karin. And on Guy's corner, you have, of course, Might Guy, Rock Lee, Neji, and Tenten. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that I am limiting 8 gates, since that would kind of squash Team Hebi, since I'm also using Sasuke before the 5 Kage Summit. To keep things interesting, because if we use the final arc Sasuke and 8 gates Guy, it would just be more of a conversation between who'd win between them rather than the teams. So now that we got the members out of the way, I think it's time we order them from weakest to strongest in each team. That way we can put them against each other. On Guy's side, the order in my opinion is Tenten, Neji, Rock Lee, and the strongest being Might Guy. As for Hebi, the order is Karin, Jugo, Suigetsu, and the strongest being Sasuke, of course. So now we can jump into how the individual fights would go. The first fight, of course, is Tenten versus Karin. Honestly, the first fight is the hardest, since both of them don't have a lot of feats. We don't know what any of them is really capable of. We know only that Tenten got beat by Tamari when they were children, and we don't know the gap between her and Shippuden and the gap in part 1. Of course, in my opinion, I believe that even in Shippuden, she probably cannot even defeat Kid Tamari anyways. Karin's another character we don't have a lot to go on. Now, if we want to use the Uzumaki chains, I think this is a little obvious considering the fact that the Uzumaki chains would definitely overwhelm Tenten. There would be nothing she's able to do. Now, as far as just base Karin, she's still pretty impressive as she was able to use Taijutsu to dodge all around the attacks thrown by the Divine Tree and Guru, which is very great considering that Tenten will be throwing projectiles at her at all times. She might be able to just dodge and close the distance. So of course with chains I'm giving it to Karin. Without chains it's a little more up in the air, but I might still give it to Karin. Tenten just never did anything to impress me in my opinion. Even if she is stabbed by one of the tools, Karin can easily heal herself as well, as seen when Guru stabs her. So even getting stabbed by Tenten's attacks isn't going to do much to her. The next fight I want to get into is Neji versus Jugo. Now, you can watch my ranking of the Akatsuki if you guys want a more in-depth analysis of why I think Suigetsu goes over Jugo. I'm not going to go into it here since I've already went into it last time. So we're going to jump into Neji versus Jugo. I love this fight already because even though they're both taijutsu users, both physical badasses, they could not be any more different. I know most will call it a mismatch because Neji is fodder. A lot of people think Neji's fodder, and a lot of people scale Jugo to the Raikage, but that's just not true either. Neither of the 2 points. For starters, to say Jugo scales to Raikage is just blatantly wrong. The Raikage had no trouble with Jugo at all. He was never threatened. The only impressive fact of that fight was that Jugo survived one attack from the Raikage, which granted I think is more that Neji can take, but that's just more of a durability versus durability conversation, which I don't think many will argue Neji has better durability than Jugo. Surprisingly though, I don't think that durability is going to play much of a factor. I think both fighters can end the fight just as quick, with Jugo landing a strong strike on Neji can immediately incapacitate him. But at the same time, I think Neji can, if he gets in, he can just shut off Jugo's chakra points really easily. I think if the distance is closed, Jugo's not a good hand-to-hand fighter. In comparison to a taijutsu master like Neji is, he's just going to duck and weave and shut down his chakra points and just end the fight. Now I know there's the question if Neji's 8 trigrams could even work on Jugo's hardened arms, but I believe it would since it's still part of Jugo's body in the end. It's not like, you know, the wood golem where when Hashirama turns his hand to wood, he's just kind of creating this giant wood construct. Unlike Jugo where that is still his hand. The next thing to talk about is rotation. Is it enough to block Jugo's full power strike? That's hard to say. If we look back at Naruto did not even use a single tail. He just had the 9 tails chakra and he was able to break through Neji's rotation. So is Jugo's full power strike enough? Even though there's not a lot of evidence in this point, I'm inclined to. I think it'd be weird if Naruto just with the chakra alone hits harder than Jugo's full power. It could be, but I just don't see it that way. The problem is, I don't know if it'd even come down to that. I don't think Neji needs to use the rotation against someone like Jugo because Jugo is going to try to close the distance. And if he does, that is not going to bode well for him. Neji's just far too fast of a striker. We see in the fight against Kidomaru when he launches all the spiders. Neji's just taking all these spiders out and all this web out in an instant. Jugo's not matching that speed, and so I guess Jugo can try to keep him at bay, but it wouldn't really work either because Neji also has the air palm. It's a long-range attack that he has no problem using. I'm going to give this fight to Neji, and I know that's going to surprise a lot of people, but I just don't see any conceivable way Jugo can get the hit on Neji. The next fight, of course, is then Suigetsu versus Rock Lee. Although Lee has the speed advantage, can he actually hit Suigetsu with his taijutsu? Hard to say, but I'd guess not. Suigetsu can transform into a giant body of water capable of stopping the Eight Tails. He was able to hold it off for a long time. Took several hits from the guy also. And I don't think anyone's going to argue that Lee has the same strength as the Eight Tails, let alone Killer Bee and base. This is kind of a stomp in Suigetsu's favor, to be honest. He just have to wait for the gates to run out for Lee to get tired and just finish him off after. I mean, if there's a body of water also, Suigetsu can just teleport all around the place. There's a lot of things going down against Rock Lee. Rock Lee, we don't know if he can use the Sakujako. It's hard to say. If he can, that changes everything, but that's just headcanon. We're just assuming a Sakujago is not a Gates technique. It is a regular jutsu, so we don't know if Lee learned it. Lee may be in the process of learning it, but we don't know for sure. And just because of that, Lee has nothing to defeat Suigetsu with. Finally, we compare the big boys, which are Guy and Sasuke Uchiha. It's important to just skip to 7 Gates Guy, since anything before that gets slapped in my opinion. One fight we really can't use is Guy versus Kisame, since Kisame was pretty much dead in that battle, and I personally believe he's way stronger than both guys anyways. Kisame was tired, he didn't have chakra, so it's not a good basis. We need to look at Guy's fight against Madara, where he kind of just ragdolls his Susanoo with the Hirodora, which is just insane. This easily shows how powerful the Hirodora is, and it easily tells us that the Hirodora will be more than capable of one-shotting Sasuke. Now, don't get me wrong, Sasuke also has a one-shot attack, which is probably Karin, as Guy shows no feats close to surviving an attack like Karin, at least in 7 Gates. The difficult part for Sasuke is that Guy's Hirodora comes out way faster than Sasuke is going to be able to get the Karin out. I've heard the argument of Sasuke summoning and going inside Manda, but I honestly think if Guy is in 7 Gates, he's not going to have that time. He's not going to let Sasuke use that. The time between C0 going off and Guy just trying to blitz Sasuke is going to be way shorter. Speaking of Manda, is he a threat? Yes and no. Although Manda is powerful, don't get me wrong, Kabuto is like afraid he's going to betray Orochimaru back in part 1. Granted, Orochimaru was sealed, but I think the tag team of Guy and Lee spell just an internal ass whooping for Manda. Like, as soon as Manda shows up and these two guys see him, they're just going to beat the snot out of him. A more important question is, can Guy blitz Sasuke? This depends on how you compare the Raikage and KCM1 Naruto in speed, as I believe they are a lot closer than people think. With that said, Guy seems comparable to Naruto and KCM, which means he might be able to blitz him at least once with a dynamic entry. There is a problem with Genjutsu though, and whether or not Guy would be able to deal with it. Of course, if we assume that Guy can't, then they are all kind of screwed up. But if he can, I'm sure he'll at least get some damage off. Guy's kind of trained to fight around the Genjutsu, but we have to also understand that Sasuke's better at Genjutsu than Kakashi is. That one is more up in the air, so if you don't want to use it, I understand it. In fact, I probably am not going to use it in this analyzation. Of course, with that being said, this video is not about 1 versus 1 matches. It's about a team versus another, so let's get into that. The first obvious duo is Guy and Lee. Since they most likely have impeccable chemistry with one another, they're probably going to be able to body any one member if they lock them in a combo. There wouldn't be any of them that could survive such an onslaught of attacks from both of them. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said really about Hebi in terms of their teamwork. Prior to Killer Bee, they really hadn't fought together yet. And of course, we're assuming that this is before the 5 Kage Summit. So I guess if we're talking about with the Amaterasu, that's different. But I'm only going over the Sasuke that fought Itachi and Deidara, not the one with the Amaterasu. So another thing in favor of Team Guy is that Guy has a Sakujago. He's able to evaporate things just by his heat of chakra alone, which would spell terrible news for Suigetsu. If the matchup comes to Suigetsu versus Guy, that's horrible for him. The thing is, I think that as they're being set up, I'm pretty sure Guy would want to take on Sasuke since he knows he's the strongest and the leader of that team. Now, if we're going to talk about a matchup that's good for Team Hebi, it's got to be Neji versus Suigetsu. There's no chakra points to shut down. If he's a body of water, Neji's not going to be able to shut anything down, so that's a bad matchup for him. Then we have Sasuke versus Lee. That's a bad matchup too. Sasuke knows Lee's entire fighting style. He was so knowledgeable of his fighting style that he used it himself in his fight against Gaara. With all that being said, there's one thing I have not talked about, and it's knowledge. Unfortunately for Team Guy, no one really knows anything Team Hebi are capable of. No one knows who Suigetsu is, no one knows who Jugo is, no one knows who Karin is. And the most they know about Sasuke is that he can use Chidori. 2 years have gone by and Sasuke's learned so many more techniques that these characters would have no hope in knowing exactly what they can do. Sasuke, on the other hand, knows just about anything they can do. Neji is a basic Hyuga. He has a lot of techniques of normal Hyuga, which Sasuke is more than knowledgeable about. Then you got Might Guy, who's similar to Lee. Although he will not know everything Might Guy can do, he knows the basics. Lee, we've already gone through that, and Tenten, he doesn't need to know anything about Tenten. So why is it important that Team Guy don't know anything about Suigetsu? Well, it could lead to the death of one of the characters or a huge injury on Team Guy's part at the start of the battle. So say Neji or Lee are going to go for a blitz attempt on Suigetsu, they're going to be in for a horrible surprise if Suigetsu turns into water and then cleaves one of them. More dangerous is the fact that they don't have knowledge on Karin either. If Guy deals a heavy attack on Sasuke and say knocks him out or incapacitates him or almost kills him, he's going to be able to get a bite off of Karin and heal entirely, back to normal. If Guy were to win his fight against Sasuke and Sasuke were to get healed, everyone's going to be focused on Jugo and Suigetsu, and Sasuke can surprise all of them with a Kirin. Worst comes to worst, he doesn't even have to kill Jugo and Suigetsu, as he could summon Manda and have them go inside of him before using Kirin on them. Now, even if Guy dodges the attack or survives the attack, the other three definitely aren't, and Guy would have to deal with all 4 members of Team Hebi on his own, which is a fight he will not win. I just think that Team Hebi has a few better matchups. It's definitely a close fight, but I will give it to Team Hebi in the end. Thank you guys and girls for watching. It's definitely fun to do videos like this. If you guys have another battle you guys want me to do, just leave it in the comment section below. I'm just starting at YouTube, so if you guys want to see my journey, then go ahead and subscribe. It'd mean a lot to me. But this was a very fun battle to talk about. It's very close. I would say that Hebi wins about 7 out of 10 times. So what did you guys think of the battle? Who do you guys think would win? Leave all that in the comment section below. Thank you so much, and make sure you check out my social media platforms. Bye.